Why does grass-fed beef tend to have richer flavors than feedlot beef? Because
when Jim Gerrish speaks, farmers and even the cows pay attention.
To create the best animal possible, we need the best pasture.
Gerrish is a grazing consultant, author, and advocate of grass-raised beef production. His book, Kick the Hay Habit, A Practical Guide to Year-Round Grazing, is considered a contemporary classic for farmers and ranchers looking to move beyond feedlot farming.
The holy grail they're looking for is the ability to create a unique flavor in their beef and then repeat it. Repeatability is the real challenge.
Gerrish's farm and consulting business is based in Idaho. He's in Vermont to talk with farmers about grazing, grass-fed beef, and the chicken and the egg question all grazers have to ask. Do you establish your pastures first, or start out with high-quality animals?
I generally say I will take superior grass management and average cattle genetics any day of the week compared to superior animal genetics and average grass management. But what I really want is superior grass-based genetics in the cattle and good grazing management to be able to capitalize on those genetics. So it's a combination of both.
The majority of beef that's eaten in the United States is grain-fed and comes from large-scale feedlots. Grass-fed beef production is smaller and more likely local, so consumers know where their food comes from. Grass-fed beef has been gaining in popularity as consumer demand for local food has increased. It follows a trend away from large-scale agriculture and towards local farms and food.
Prior to World War II, basically all beef in America was grass-fed. The grain-fed was a real specialty and a very small market. After World War II, when we had great surpluses of grain, feeding it to cattle became one of the outlets just to get rid of excess grain. And so the feedlot industry and all the supporting industries developed. So the interest in grass-fed beef is really a part of the environmental movement, the increasing consciousness of how diet affects our health. So it's considered a more natural food. People are concerned about their health. You know, they were told for years that saturated fat and red meat was not good for you, which has been totally debunked. And the saturated fat components in grass-fed beef are just healthier, more natural than what's in the feedlot beef. So a lot of people like that.
Anna Houston came from Great Barrington, Massachusetts to learn from Gerrish. As a new farmer, she's hoping his experience and expertise will guide her at this early stage in her career.
Studying the animals, studying the soil, studying the grass, studying the land on a grass-based intensive management, intensive livestock use, and how that can work and benefit the consumer, benefit the soils, and benefit the farmer. To learn from someone like that is a huge opportunity because there's not many people who know to the extent that he knows and have the experience that he has. It's really cool to listen to him. Everything that he talks about, he starts with, well, in my farm in Missouri or in my farm in Idaho, it's always, he's been there and he's done it, and that's pretty unique.
Okay.
Pasture walks like this allow farmers to learn firsthand and to network with peers.
There's farmers here from Vermont and New York and Connecticut, you know, to meet people who have similar goals, and we're all trial and error at this point. And so to learn from other people in the business and meet people and make connections is also really, I think, really important in building a broader New England farm network around progressive grass-fed practices. Because I think that movement is still building. It's, you know, we have our pockets, but I think to bring people together about it is really cool and important.
Steve Schubart is also new to grazing. He rents land in Shoreham where he finishes cattle. Finishing is putting the final weight on the animal so it's at its optimum for market. Meeting with Gerrish helped Schubart fine-tune his pasture management.
The big aha moment, I think, was when we were talking a little bit about residuals and trying to not graze, overgraze. And trying to look down at the ground and see that layer of mulch that is basically being trampled down, grass that's not being eaten, and learning more about the benefits of that layer of mulch.
Gerrish may not be from around here, But Schubart sees how many of the practices he uses out west can be applied to Vermont and the Northeast.
Hearing Jim's take on what your most limiting factors are as maybe a small or mid-scale producer is really helpful. Also, a lot of what he's talked about is not necessarily prescribed grazing, but it's adaptive grazing. And so you have to be adaptive out where Jim is in the Midwest, and we have to be adaptive here in Vermont too, like having last 2 summers be pretty dry for us, and then this summer all of a sudden it's super wet. And so hearing Jim talk about his experiences out west and sort of what they do to manage those different challenges they face is very applicable to what we face here in Vermont.
Your calves will finish well on pasture.
What Schubart does by finishing animals on grass is one area Gerrish sees as a growth opportunity for young farmers to raise beef and improve the overall quality of grass-fed meat.
I actually prefer the term pasture-finished beef rather than grass-fed beef, because over the years I have eaten a lot of really bad grass-fed beef because it wasn't properly finished. That means it didn't have the fat cover and fat content that it needed to be consistently tender, juicy, flavorful, and it's fairly easy to accomplish once you have your basic pasture composition and pasture management in place.
Gerrish believes the best way to know what kind of quality you're getting in your food is to get to know your farmer.
Find a farmer, make a relationship, and make that guy or gal your dedicated beef or lamb supplier, because almost all of them are open to letting people come to tour their place. They frequently have field days like we're having today, and so the consumer can come and see exactly how this meat is being produced, and then they can make up their own mind about the animal well-being, the environmental effects, and the quality of the beef.
From pasture to plate, knowing where your food comes from, who's raising it, and how it was raised, now that's something to chew on. In Orwell, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.